First speaker in this track, it's Dominique Lahaix from eCairn. And the topic will be mapping Twitter audiences, marketing for DAOs. Dominique, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so good evening, I guess. So a few words about me. So I'm Dominique. So I founded eCairn 15 years back, and we specialize in mapping Twitter audiences. And more recently, I would say a year ago, so we started to discuss with people creating DAOs, which led me to build this presentation. So what I'm going to talk about today is how do you market your DAO, how do you promote it, and how do you leverage Twitter to do that. So yeah, so my talk is structured in 4 parts. So first, I'm gonna come back to what the structure of a DAO and what we mean by marketing for DAOs. And then I'm gonna switch to Twitter. So how do you understand your community on Twitter? How do you identify and invite high impact people? And how do you leverage influencers? But to start with, so I'll start with a tweet, okay, that was shared by Deciphering, so who is a founder of CMX, so it's a huge community of community managers. So he's one of the top influencers in community management, and I really like the drawing that he made of what's the structure of a DAO. So at the inner circle, so you have the core team, then the contributors who are usually paid with token, then token holders. Most of the case, there is a Discord channel where people can chat and exchange. Then you've got the customers, and at the extreme, let's say outside, so you've got the audience. So that I really like the way that he described this. The structure of a DAO, and and we talk a lot about what it would mean to market in this kind of structure. So then I looked, there is not much on the net on how do you market DAOs. So I found a good article from Growth Chain, and what they say that, and I'm just they give you the 5 key things that you need to do. So I'm just gonna go over the top 2, which are relevant to my talk. So the first thing that they say that clearly define your mission, and define a mission that it's critical, and giving down member a clear North Star. And the way I would rephrase it is that find a cause worth to fight for, and find an existing community who cared about it. Because you're not going to invent something from nothing. I mean, you can, but if there is, let's say, a critical issue that some people are passionate about it, there is a good chance that it's already, forming somewhere, and there are already people talking about it, connecting about the topic. So the key is to, see yourself in not building something, but leveraging something, and connecting to something. And so the number 2 issue that they mentioned is creating a DAO is to build a community. So that's clearly something that I would share. But I would rephrase not to build a community, but to federate a community, because as I was saying before, if you build a DAO on something that is meant to be successful, there should be already some people who share, the objective, the mission, the vision of the DAO. So I think you should see yourself more as someone that brings members together in your DAO, rather than someone that creates something out of nothing. So, and if I go back to the marketing scope, so back to David's picture, so the core team, the contributor, the token holder, and the Discord member, for me, that's more community management that you need to do. And marketing is really take care about the customer and more specifically audience. And when it comes to audience, it's just, it's mainly Twitter. Okay, so why Twitter? Twitter is the only real open social network. So it's the only social network where you can discover people, look for people before they follow you. So in Twitter, you can read the tweets from anybody, and you can engage with anybody. It's by far the most open social network. And when we look at existing DAOs, they market on Twitter. So this, leads me to the conclusion that marketing for a DAO is marketing towards the Twitter audience, okay, which is very interesting for us at eCairn, because we specialize in mapping Twitter audiences. So how do you market toward Twitter audience? So first you have to define your audience, so the persona, so the kind of people that you really want to have in your DAO, and define your value proposition and the mission for this audience. Next, you need to map this audience on Twitter. So, you need to find a large number of people who fit the definition of the persona and understand them. And then you need to build outreach strategies that works. So you could even do advertising, but in the context of a DAO, it's more, I would say, organic. So the goal is to build more outbound outreach that would help you, quickly build up your DAO. So as the second step, so I will tell you how you do that. So how do you map and understand your community? And first, you have to understand where you are. What it is that you are trying to do. So depending on the kind of let's say topic or area, if you are let's say trying to build a DAO on an obscure topic and nobody really is engaged about the topic, so your target community will be something like on the left side, so individual people not connecting one to each other. So this kind of community is very difficult to bring together because you cannot leverage the network to do it. And on the other hand, if you target, let's say, a topic and area where people are already active, so there are already informal communities on Twitter with, people talking together. So the graph, these graphs show that these are Twitter graphs, okay, and every link is a connection, so that could be a follow, retweet, quote between people. It covers blogs as well. And the size of the bubble, where you have the picture of the people, is indicative of their influence. So the bigger the bubble, the most influential these people are. So when you try to build a DAO on a topic that's already, let's say, interesting for people on Twitter, that's a kind of network that you're going to face. So you're going to have to target, this kind of network and bring them together. And it's much easier to do it. It's less work to do it if you do it properly than to target the non-network on the left. Because here, you don't even know where to start. So how do you do that? How do you map a Twitter community? So I give you a way to do it manually, and it's a recursive process. So you start by identifying an initial group of people. So I would say 20 to 50 people that fits your persona. So, and let's say I'm going to talk about things that we do on a day-to-day basis. So I'm targeting a group of Python developer who are specialized in the UI. So I mean, let's say you want to build a DAO on that. So you will first go and identify people on Twitter that fits this profile. So you may have to cross over to LinkedIn, which is a challenge too, because as you know, people on Twitter may not use their real name. Okay, so I mean, if you are able to connect to the LinkedIn profile, so that's much richer because you get solid location, job title, company, expertise. So that's what you should do as a first step. And when you have a group of 20 to 50 people, you should look at who they follow. So, and we call these markers. So you'll find that these people follow. I mean, there are commonalities between people that they follow. And so you clearly need to filter, because if you just take the top, you'll get people like I don't know. I mean, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, I mean, Justin Bieber, and these are not the people that are interesting for you. But I mean, if you go down the list, so you'll find relevant people that are in your sweet spot and that have decent audiences. So that's what we call markers. So then you collect the followers of these markers, okay? And you could rank them based on the commonality of followers. And then you can filter on bio, gender, age, I mean, content that they publish, hashtag that they use. And if you do it over and over, after a few steps, so you'll have a pretty good list of people in Twitter that are your target audience. So, I mean, it can take time, so that's why you have people like us. So that's what we do for a living, okay? So we have industrialized this process, and we do map, I mean, all types of communities and on Twitter, which people can market to, whether they build traditional Web2 communities or whether they want to just market their brand, or whether they are building a DAO. So this is what you end up with, okay? So that's a map on no code, so on specific no code map. So as you collect all these people and you look at who they connect to, so you can see clusters, okay? So within these people who are no code, interested in no code, so you have some who are more interested in AI and data science, some who are more makers, so they are building things with no-code solutions. Some who are more promoters, so these are more people that are evangelists of the no-code movement. You could have some geo subgroup, so like Japan or Latin America, and you could have some people grouped around a vendor. I mean, there could be a vendor who has a very specific no-code solution, who has some aficionados, so who connect and talk about this specific no-code solution on Twitter. So that's a typical landscape that you'll get. So as a DAO marketers, again, I mean, depending on your target, let's say you want to build a DAO on no-code AI, so you'll go for the blue people. So and what you'll do is that you'll collect the blue people, and you will rerun the process. So you let's say you started with a generic no-code audience, so you've mapped this generic no-code audience. It's not exactly your target. So your target is more the people doing AI and data science with no code. And then you go back, and you start with this group of people, follow who they follow, collect the followers, and then filter again on bio, gender, and LinkedIn profile. So that's how you map the communities and audiences on Twitter. And our clients, usually we go for the 10,000s. So it's not a few tens, because this would not be enough, let's say, to build up a community or a DAO. But it's not the million either. So if you end up having millions of people in your target, so probably your let's say mission and your DAO is defined too broadly. So granularity is key. I mean, especially when you start. So I would say, I mean, a few thousand is probably a good number if you want to be successful. So define, let's say, your persona map, and until you find a reasonably sizable group of people, like 2,000, who are consistent and pretty close to the target persona that you have. So then you should study them. Okay, so look at who they are, so gender, age, what kind of topic they talk about, companies they work for. I mean, the kind of reach that they have on Twitter. So it's very important to listen to them. So you can also look at what kind of jobs, that job title they have. So you can mind their bio. And listening is critical, and it's critical for marketing to the DAOs. It's even, I mean, there are even other interesting benefits, is that if you listen to a broader community like this, okay, you'll find content, and you'll find, let's say, first you can drive your content agenda based on what these people discuss, okay? Plus, you'll find some good pieces of content that you can share with people in your DAO. And content is really critical, because, I mean, when you build a community, so what they say is that people come from the mission, but they stay for the content. So, I mean, it's no different from a DAO. So if you want to have people coming back, so you need to get them fresh content over and over. So listening to this, community and audience on Twitter is critical. It's gonna inform how you go after this group of people. So then the next step that you should consider is to invite high impact people. So and we call it, so bring members that drive success. So pretty quickly, so that's the kind of let's say ecosystem that you'll be in. So you have people who have already joined your DAO, and then you have the rest of the world, which is on Twitter. So you need to find, who should you go after next, and the great people that you should bring in are influencers. And because when you look at why do people decide to join the DAO, so the first thing that they do is that they will look at who is already in, okay? And if they don't recognize anybody in the DAO, it's going to be very tough for them, to make the decision to join, I mean, your community or on your DAO. I mean, every people, so we have tons of opportunities to become members of tons of communities and DAOs. So I mean, our selection is based on who we know, who is already there. So if you know someone with credibility and influence, already a member, so there is a good chance that that you're going to join the DAO. And it's all the fear of missing out, type of stuff. So as an example, so these are people who are on the right, who are influencer in developer relations. Okay, so if you build a DAO, I mean, and you have the chance to bring one in as a member, and if your DAO is about developers, so most of the people that you're targeting, they know these people. If they see that one of them or a few of them have already joined, it's a huge plus, and it's going to be much easier for you to convince people to join the DAO. So the other, people that you should target are people who are relevant, positive, so about your cause or your product, if your DAO is about the product, reachable. So one of the mistake that people make is to go for celebrity, and I mean, celebrities are not really reachable. Plus, one day they will, promote your DAO, your community, your DAO, and next day they will switch to another one. So it's very difficult to actually build momentum working with celebrities. If the people are already connected to DAO members, so like this guy, okay, it's a huge plus because you can leverage this other person to ask for a referral. So you can ask him to bring these people for you. And micro influencers, so content producer with good reach. So these are the characteristics that you are looking at when you start promoting your DAO with outreach. So, and how do you leverage the micro influencers? So there are very different types of micro influencers. So that's again. So these are micro influencers on viruses. So very relevant for COVID. So let's say you build a DAO around COVID. So these are kind of people. They may be a little bit too popular or celebrity-ish, but that's the kind of people that would be very relevant for a DAO on COVID. So when you profile them, so you have different types. So some have influence, and by influence we mean they are followed and their content are shared by other people in the same community. So which is different from reach, because you can have a huge reach, but it's spread over tons of different topics. So let's say someone can have a huge reach, but being followed by very few people who work in virology. So this person will not be a good fit then. But so you want to have a good mix of people who are influential, people who have decent reach, and also people who are really relevant on the topic that that you are focused on, and you leverage them differently. So for the first ones, the most influential, so you go one by one. You will try to get them as a member of your DAO, and you or potentially a contributor, but and you could invite them to speak if you organize some webinar or or this kind of event. For the second one, so the one who have highest reach, so the goal is to leverage them for distributing your content, because if they have a good reach, so and they distribute your content, they need to have some level of relevance. But then it's a good way to promote what we are trying to do and your new DAO. And the people who have are highly relevant, so you should go for collaborative content production. So invite them to write for you, or because when they write for you, they will most probably also promote their own writing, and they will promote your DAO and your company along the way. So that's about what I wanted to talk about. So again, if I start from the top, so marketing for DAOs is really a Twitter play, and because that's almost the only place where you can openly find people. Okay, so and what you need to do is to map your Twitter audience, map audiences on Twitter, starting from a persona and collecting more and more people who are relevant for you. As you've done that, so then you should invite the high impact people, because that's going to give visibility and it's going to be helpful to bring other people in. If you see someone who is influential in your field, already member of a DAO, I mean, it's a really good thing for you to join as well. And then, I mean, you have, from a marketing standpoint, you should use influential marketing, content marketing, and all the traditional, I would say, strategy to reach out influencer in Twitter communities. Thank you. I don't know whether I should answer questions or.
Yes, if anyone has questions, we now still have around 5 minutes for questions. The first question in the chat is Ron Rivers is asking, will these slides be shared?
The answer is yes. So I send them to Ross. So
okay, so
it was an easy one.
It will be accessible after the conference for everyone. I actually have a question. I now have a really good understanding of how to find the people I need to find on Twitter in order to whom I need to get in touch with. But how do you actually get in touch with them? How do you make them share your content, or what exactly is the next step once you have mapped your audiences?
So in the context of a DAO, it's more a one-to-one play, because so the way that we recommend is that, let's say you have found you have mapped this massive community of a few thousand people that you're interested in. So you start to spot, let's say, between 50 to 100 that you really want to leverage as your first step. So then you listen to them. So you listen to them and you engage in context. So on a day-to-day basis, so you spend like 15 minutes to, half an hour per day, and you listen to each and every people of this 50 first, and then you engage. So you just start to talk.
Yeah.
Next, you should try to take the conversation on LinkedIn, because that's the let's say. So you start to let's say like what they say. Engage. Then when they like you back, follow you back, then you'll invite them on LinkedIn, and then that's where you start to ask them if they can help. So whether they can promote your content. So that's one way to do it. If you write content, so there are techniques that you can use to engage influencer on your content. And one thing that worked very well is citations and quotes. So let's say you write an article on DAO, okay? You look for people that are writing similar articles, okay, but have some influence. Maybe not too much, okay, like people that would get 1,000 to 5,000 followers, especially if you start, and you could just do something like other interesting article, on the topic, and you list 5 of them along with the Twitter ID of these people, and then you reach them out and say, we wrote an article about DAOs, and we featured you because we really like your own article. The chances that they will retweet is really high if you do that. So there are techniques that you can use to engage and get some feedback and action from influencers.
Awesome. I think that's really great hands-on content, and it's one of these gold nuggets that just helps you to take the next step and take your DAO to the next level.
You can advertise as well, but it's very tricky. On Twitter, so you can advertise to custom audiences, but the rules and so it's very tough. So I mean, we've tried. It's really difficult to make it work.
Yeah. That's also really good to know that what you describe also sounds really organic and the natural way how people would also interact in reality.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Any more questions from the audience? Don't be shy, just open your mic, share your video. We want to get to know you, and if you have any questions to Dominique about his great talk, you can also raise your hand or just leave a message in the chat. Oh yes, Ron is asking other questions. Any tools for mining profiles? Oh yeah, that would have been one of my questions as well. What tools are you using to mine the profiles?
So we use our own tool. Okay, so I mean, we are a vendor in this space, but what do you mean by mining profiles? So I guess that you mean connecting profiles from people across different social networks. That's
maybe Ron, do you want to specify?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Hello, everyone. And thank you so much for making the time to do this presentation. You had mentioned specifically mining Twitter profiles for professional information, right? Titles, et cetera, kind of better identify your niche target markets. So is that something your software does? Does it segment that information? Like, does it scrape the profiles? Can you explain a little bit more about like how that works and like what your process is?
So yeah, so what we do is that we connect profiles. So let's say we have tools, techniques, vendors that we use to connect the profile of, let's say, someone, I mean, from Twitter to LinkedIn, GitHub, Facebook, and so on and so forth. So this ability to connect profiles gives us a much richer information about the person, because on Twitter, I mean, some people do disclose, professional information, but most people don't. So that's why the connection between Twitter and LinkedIn is really critical. So that's something that we have in our platform. So as we map the Twitter audience, simultaneously we connect the LinkedIn profile and the GitHub and other profile. So then this gives us some, let's say, more data to segment and reach and target. So then we also we do some NLP on the Twitter profile as well. So to extract companies and job title, but I mean it's not as accurate as getting the data on LinkedIn. We also analyze the picture, okay, to get age and gender information. So it's a lot of small things, that you need to do on the profile to collect as much as you can. So doing that, we end up with a name, location, job title, company, gender, age, and yeah, that's about it. And then we compute an influence score within the community based on who's talking to whom, who is engaging with whom. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Dominique, thanks so much for this seriously interesting talk. I think we can all take something from it.
Okay, thanks for having me.